Assalamu alaikum.
Ayok. Can you have everybody take their seats, inshallah?
Assalamu alaikum, guys. Hello. Assalamu alaikum. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Inshallah, welcome everybody. I hope everybody's doing good. Welcome to our third class with Omer Hasid, our founding scholar, Mosaic. Our class is going to be on etiquette and hospitality, inshallah. After the class, we have snacks over there, water over there, and tea in the back. And after our class, we will have Maghrib, inshallah. And if anybody wants to continue to come to these classes, our next class is on the 10th, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله سبحانك ما علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت عليم حكيم اللهم ما فهمنا إلا ما فهمتنا إنك أنت جواد الكريم وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. How are you guys doing? Everybody okay? Whose first class is this? What was your name, sister? So nice to meet you, Alhamdulillah. You're obviously, alhamdulillah, welcome, sir. MashaAllah. Anybody else? Second, third? First? Alhamdulillah. Who's been here for all four? All three? Alhamdulillah, inshallah. We're going to be posted up here for the foreseeable summer, inshallah. So every 2 weeks. 2 weeks is a solid pulse. We don't want to overwhelm anybody, inshallah. But we may also make intention that we can make this a weekly thing. If you guys are okay with it, inshallah, with your permission. The class, does anybody know what book we're studying? For those of you who've been here 3 weeks in a row? Huh? Kitab al-Futuwa, which means what? The book of chivalry. The book of chivalry. Anybody know who wrote it? You guys remember who wrote it? Who's the author? Imam al-Sulami. Allah iftah alayk. Imam al-Sulami. Who wrote the book of chivalry. Last week, can you guys hear me, by the way? Okay, because there's a lot of feedback from me, so I can't really hear my voice. Last week, the class was on what did we study? Last 2 weeks ago, the last class? Hospitality. What's hospitality? Al-diyafa, al-hukm al-diyafa. And now the Imam goes into generosity, and then we're going to study friendship, the book of friendship. Hold on. Bismillah. Naam. So the last advices that were generally given was the ahkam and the 7 rulings of hosting a guest, of hosting your guest. And this advice number 7, so this is the first 6. Advice number 7 is on generosity. The Prophet ﷺ said, "Inna jannatul bayt al-kurama," that paradise is what? The house of the ones that are generous. And the Imam here says that above anything else, when it comes to hosting people or it becomes a community, communities only are sustained by generosity. And what's the word for generosity in Arabic? What's somebody who's generous? Al-Karim. Al-Karim is somebody who's generous. But it's also related to what? What? Inna akramakum indallahi atqakum. Indeed, the who? The what? The most honorable of people are the ones that have taqwa in Allah. So you have the generosity. Karam is generosity. You're people of karam. Somebody who's akram is somebody who is the most generous, but it also means one who's the most honored. So the most honorable of you linguistically are what? The ones that can just have the ability to give. Right? You guys want to come closer? La tukhaf. Ta'al. You guys could come closer too. There's an awkward gap between this two here. You guys can come closer, inshallah. that ikram is to be is to be somebody who's generous. But there's also something that we have discussed a while ago, which is al-karamat. Al-karamat are what? That people have. You have karamat. Prophets have karamat, or what's called mu'jizat. And the awliya have karamat. These are called miracles. These are called miracles. And every believer has miracles. You and me, you experience a miracle every single day. And it's impermissible to not believe in miracles. You have the miracles of prophets that are called mu'jizats. Mu'jizats. So the splitting of the sea, the splitting of the moon, they're called what? Mu'jizats. And then you have the miracles of the amun nas, the awam, the public, which is called karama, which is directly related to generosity because it's a miracle from the generosity of your Lord. And there is an athar that you should all try to memorize and you should write down for you who are taking notes. Khayrul karama istiqama. The best miracle is to be steadfast in your deen. The best miracle. So you look at the Prophet ﷺ, is what was his miracle? His miracle was obviously the Quran was the greatest miracle ever. But you also notice that he had what? Splitting of the moon. What else happens? Huh? The Sayyidina Lut, slipping of the sea. You have the miracle of the Prophet speaking to jinns. You have the miracle of the rocks saying La ilaha illallah. But what is the greatest miracle of the Prophet ﷺ? Is that was given to him, yeah. But him himself, like his reality, was the fact that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was Muhammadan. His akhlaq was the greatest miracle, such that if you saw him, you believed in Allah. If you saw him, you believed in Allah. His generosity. These are sifat of the prophets. You and me cannot have, we can't have mu'jizat. I'm gonna copy the Prophet ﷺ in splitting of the moon. Can you do that? Obviously not. I'm gonna copy the Prophet ﷺ and having rocks make dhikr for me. Can you do that? But what can you copy? What miracle can you copy? His generosity, his tahajjud, his sleepless nights, his weeping to his Lord, his way he was with his orphans, the way he was with his wives. And where did it begin? The Imam here is saying, above all, be generous. It's the generosity is a crown of sainthood. Generosity is a crown of sainthood. And that's why Allah says in the Quran, مَثَلُ الَّذِينَ يُنْفِقُونَ أَمْوَالُهُمْ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ كَمِثْلِ حُبَّةٍ أَنْبَتَتْ سَبْعَةَ السَّنَابِلَ. That the example of the ones who spend their wealth in the cause of God are like a grain of sprouts into 7 years, each bearing what? كُلُّ سُنْبَلَةٍ مِئَةَ الْحَبَّةِ. All of the bears of the seeds bearing 100 grains. Wallahu yudaifu liman yasha wallahu wasul alim. Allah multiplies what He wishes, and Allah is wide in His generosity. Allah is all-knowing. He's bountiful. So He begins what? That generosity is the seed of civilization. Generosity is a seed of civilization. Is the ability to give. Is the ability to open your hearts as karama, right? And Allah Ta'ala says about the people that have yuthiruna, that they prefer other people, walau kana bihim khasasa, even if they're preferred. He's talking here about the Ansar. And if you look back into Medina, Medina is hosting a bunch of refugees, right? All these muhajirun are refugees. They're coming from Mecca, destitute, no wealth. People that have been wealthy, their wealth has been taken away from them, and they're hosting them. And Allah says that they prefer them, walau kana bihim khasasa, even if it's theirs. Even if it's their thing, they prefer them. So the preference to others is generosity. And that begins, and when I think about generosity, what are you guys thinking about directly? Action al-flus. Yeah, you're thinking about money, right? That's the first thing we often think about when we think about generosity. Is money. Na'am. As opposed to if somebody's sitting and they're uncomfortable and you're in a comfortable space, that you stand up and you let them sit where you sit. That's the ikram. That's karama. If you see somebody who they're a little older than you, you give them the back seat. You give the thing. If there's somebody that is clearly thirsty, you just give them water. Like those are the foundation. We often think about generosity as, well, I don't have enough to give. Well, who told you you don't have enough to give? There's some people, وَفَضَّلْنَاهُ بَعْدُ وَلَا بَعْدٍ, that we prefer some of you over others. In what? In things. Some of you are blessed in wealth, so you can give in wealth. Some of you are blessed in talent, in the ability to serve. Nobody can serve like you can serve. You're generous in your service. Some people are generous with just smiling. You ever meet people, they're smiling all the time? All the time? Like, you don't understand why they're smiling. They're always smiling. Sayyidina Mu'adh bin Jabal said, "Ma ra'aytu an-nabiy sallallahu alayhi wa sallam illa kana mutabassima." I've never seen the Prophet except he was what? He was always smiling. He was always smiling. Does that mean the Prophet didn't experience grief? Does it mean the Prophet didn't experience grief? Was he not worried? You look at Sayyidah Aisha, he describes the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam as in his home when he was alone, he was almost grief-stricken. He was grief-stricken. That at the house when he was by himself, he was intense. He would be in his room by himself with Allah Jalla Jalaluhu, almost sad. Almost looks like he's grief-stricken. But when he was around people, he was generous with the smile, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Nowadays is the opposite, right? When we're around people, we're almost grief-stricken. We're Debbie Downer, always frowning. Something's up. I wear my anxiety on my face. I wear my street on my face. But when we're in the house, you acting a fool. You're super happy all the time. When it's supposed to be the what? The opposite. That you don't burden people with your grief, but you give people with your smile. That's the prophetic way. You don't burden people with your grief, but you give people with your smile. Sallallahu alaihi wa alihi wa sahbihi wasallam, that he was always smiling. So you have generosity, and then you have what? You have people who are artists, that they're generous with their art. You have people that are generous with their knowledge. If you know something, it is imperative that you teach your family first. Why do we study deen? You study the Quran and you study the fara'id so you can teach your wife, your husband, and your kids. And the Messenger of Allah said, look, this is incredibly important. Man katima ilm, jamar Allahu yawm al-qiyamati jamaruhu min an-nar. Whoever conceals knowledge from other people, Allah crowns them on the day of judgment with the crown that is made of fire. He gives them the throne of fire. Who conceals ilm. It is imperative that your shuyukh always teach you. Your teachers teach. If there's knowledge, you always teach people. And if you are given knowledge of the deen, you often teach others. There's a difference between correcting people and teaching people. Do you know who the Warner Brothers are? You know the Warner Brothers? You ever come to the masjid, they're always warning you about something. The Warner Brothers are always warning you about stuff, right? Brother, I have to talk to you and give you some nasiha, right? And except you know it's coming. Sister, mashallah, you're in the masjid, sister, I have to talk to you. Shwaya. Right? A little bit. You guys know what I'm talking about? Huh? Sister, I know you want your kid to be a masjid, but it's not a place for children right now. You've experienced it. This is called unsolicited. This is not karama. This is unsolicited advice. This is not nasiha. The Prophet ﷺ said, ad-deenu nasiha. Religion is good advice, goodwill. They said, liman ya Rasulullah. He says, ilallah wa li rasulihi wa li kitabihi. To Allah, His Prophet, and His book. And you're like, how do you give advice to nasiha to Allah? It's a hadith. It's in the 40 hadith Imam Nawawi. It's a hadith. But how do you give nasiha to Allah? How do you give nasiha to the Prophet? It doesn't mean that you're giving Allah nasiha advice. It's saying you're channeling advice from Allah and His Messenger. You're channeling advice from the book and making sure that it's not from your ego. It's making sure it's not something that's like, it's from the nafs, that I'm only doing this because it makes me feel uncomfortable. It makes me feel uncomfortable. If it's something that Allah Ta'ala ordains, and I'll give you advice from it. If not, Allah yabarak feek. You have generosity in your advice, right? So it's imperative that if you know something, that you teach people. You teach people. إِنَّمَا بُعِثْتُ مُعَلِّمًا. I was only sent as a teacher. Na'am. And that's why one of the verses of generosity, amongst many of them, is those who spend their wealth in the cause of Allah. fi sabilillah. They spend what they have. And what you do is you start to spend, and usually Muslims do this all the time. Allah says, وَيُنْفِقُونَ مِمَّا تَكْرُهُونَ. You spend forth from which that you hate. We often spend forth on things that we don't need. And we don't have enough to give to this cause. We have no enough time to give to this cause. I don't mean just money, I mean time. Because House of Dragons isn't on now. So I would love to come to class, but I have to watch a game of pornography. Huh? Saha wala. Saha wala. Some of you feel a little agitated now. Huh? I have to have a show to watch. I can't really be there for you. I can't really visit the elderly. I have something to do. They spend forth from which that they hate. Like, you already hate this thing. Why are you spending? You already hate it. Your fitrah hates it. Why are you spending on the thing that you hate? Right? Then you ask people that are afflicted with alcoholism or drug addiction, you think they like to spend their money on that? You think the fitrah likes to spend their money on that? You think the primordial disposition likes to spend on things that are, you already know, are not just haram, but are gonna kill you at some point? Because we're conditioned in society to spend forth from what that we hate and to save from what that we love. And that's why one of the most interesting things is it's fard kifaya that Muslims have orphanages. And we don't have a single Muslim orphanage in America. And nobody's helping the orphans. And that's why most people, if somebody is a widow, they wouldn't marry them. Are you guys agree with me or not? Agree with me or not? If somebody is a divorcee, would they marry them or what? They wouldn't, right? You spend forth from which that you've been conditioned is better than the other. When Sayyidah Khadija radiallahu anha was married twice before she married the Habib sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where's his ego? You think you're better than the Prophet? You think you're better than the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? No, I have to, she's not young enough. And vice versa as well, by the way. For male and female, male and men. That you're conditioned to believe these are things that I know is wrong, but it's something that I'm going to spend forth from myself in. You spend forth from which that you hate, right? This is the opposite of Rashi. This is called bakhil. This is called stinginess. Everybody say bakhil. Say bakhil. You see that the khaf is a heavy khaf. It even sounds, it's hard to say it. The bakhil. And that's why the bakhil is the one that removes God from their life. فَأَمَّا مَنْ بَخِلَ. As for the one that is stingy, فَاسْتَغْنَى. They say, I'm independent of Allah. I've done this myself. Right? That's why I'm the ones who is stingy. You ever hear of this idea of the self-made man or the self-made woman? By Allah, it's not a thing. It's a satanic lie. It's a satanic lie. You know what self-made means in Arabic? خَلَقْتُ نَفْسِي. I made myself. I made myself. The nafs made itself. Right? But you had to be in the right place, in the right time, in the right moment, with the right people around you to be where you're at right now. Well, you could be, it's a Wednesday night, you could be at the clubs. You don't need to be here. But somebody came along the way and said, hey, you want to go to a thing, and put an earnestness in your heart and came and you wanted to study, spend your Wednesday night for an hour learning about chivalry and adab in Islam. So you fast in Ramadan because somebody put muhabba of Allah in your heart to fast in Ramadan. Somebody put muhabba in your heart. There was somebody that did that for you, whether it's your parents or whoever that is. Somebody did that for you. And then you have wealth because you were born in the right family, in the right time, and put in the right positions, and were given the right priorities to be given wealth, right? You were given, imagine if you didn't have eyes. Imagine having ears. Imagine having a hand. Imagine if you didn't have these things. Imagine if you didn't have the ability to speak, right? If you had an impediment. And you will see people who are grateful to Allah, and the one that is grateful to Allah is the one that is generous. That they give, but they protect themselves from burnout. That you have to give to Allah, you give to the Prophet by sending salawat on Habib sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You should be sending 100 salawat on Habib sallallahu alaihi wasallam a day, on the Prophet. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad. 100 a day, at least 100 salawat on the Prophet, to give back to Al-Habib sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he gives you 10 forth. Man salla alayya wahada sallallahu alayhi ashara. Who sends one salam upon me, I send 10 salams upon them. Even in that, the Prophet's more generous than you. Even in the passing state, he's more generous than you. Watch this. Watch this. You want to talk about the generosity of Habib sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Forget when he was alive, that he didn't sleep with a dinar in his pocket. A woman came to the Messenger of Allah, and he was going to the marketplace, and he just bought a shirt. And he saw a young slave woman. She's crying. She said, Ya Rasulullah, why are you crying? Bima tabki, why are you crying? My owners had given me a task to go buy something from the store. And فَغَابَتْ مَالِي, it disappeared. She didn't say how, it disappeared. And I'm scared to go back them such that they would discipline me. And he said, how much was it? She said it's four. She said she gave me 4 dirham. So he has 4, he gives her 2. So how much does he have? He has 2. So he goes to the souk with 2 dirhams, he buys himself a shirt to wear. Because the Prophet didn't have any clothes. So he wore a shirt. He didn't have anything that day. He walked, and another man that didn't have a shirt said, Ya Rasulullah, inni uhibbul qamis. I love your shirt. So can I wear it such that if can I be buried with it? So what does he do? He takes the shirt off his back, and you ever hear he would give the shirt off his back? He gives the shirt off his back, right? He gives the shirt off. And now the Prophet's there walking back. He doesn't have a shirt on. And he sees the girl again. He said, what happened? I gave you the 2 dirhams. She said, I know you gave me the 2 dirhams, but look, I lost it. I lost it. She'd say, how did you lose 2 dirhams? Like, bro, I just gave you 2 dirhams. Like, I was gone for like 10 minutes and I came back and you lost the money again? I lost the money. What did you do with the money? What did you get? Does he ask any of those questions? She said, why are you crying? What if I go back and they discipline me? Tayyib. He goes, okay, I'll walk back with you. So he's walking with her to her home, knocks on the door, says, Salam alaikum. Nobody responds. Says, Salam alaikum. Nobody responds. Says, Salam alaikum. Nobody responds. Finally, the 4th time, Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. And he said, Lima lam yuriddini? Why didn't you respond to me? She said, we heard your voice and we knew you were the Prophet, and we heard you send salam upon us, and we knew if we didn't respond, you would just keep sending salam upon us. We just hear you would keep sending your prayers and salam upon us. And then the Prophet said, I found this young girl. I found this young girl in the street, and she was scared to come back to you because she lost the wealth that you had put in her authority. And I said, I'm asking you by her ransom. وَأَنَا خَصْمَتُهَا. I am her advocate. Don't discipline her. Just let her be good. Don't discipline her. He said, by Ya Rasulullah, because you brought her here, إِنَّهَا حُرَّةٌ. She's emancipated. She's a free woman. Because you advocated for her, she's a free woman. And that's what 2 coins, 2 dirhams, look what it did. It emancipated a human being. Even if you can give $1, you can give your time, even give a smile, you don't know what that does to a community. It could be somebody that has just walked in this room right now that just sees you smile and says, how are you doing? And you're just generous with even if you're going through it, even if you're like, I'm going to get over myself and I'm going to be somebody, like if that person was me, how would I want to feel? How would I want to feel? And you give them that, you could have just protected them and you could have just put Iman back in their heart by the will of Allah. You could put Iman back in that person's heart. As opposed to how many of you go to Muslim spaces and we leave with less Iman than we came into? We leave with less Iman than we walked into. Some of our own spaces. We ask Allah for tawfiq and we ask Allah to forgive us. May Allah forgive us for our shortcomings. Na'am. And then you look at the Prophet in a passing state. He said, when I die, Inna Allah aradni a'malu bin Adam aw fi riwaya fi ummati. Every day, Allah shows me the actions of my entire ummah. The entire ummah. They're good and they're bad. He shows me in my grave. إِذَا وَجَدْتُ شَرًّا فَأَسْتَغْفِرُ اللَّهُ لَهُمْ. If I see bad, I ask Allah to forgive my ummah. Meaning that before I can ask for forgiveness, before I realize what I did with a sin, who's advocating for me? Who's advocating for you? Alayhi afdal as-salatu was-salam ya Rasulullah. The Prophet Muhammad ibn Habib in a passing state. وَإِذَا وَجَدْتُ الْخَيْرِ, and I find good, فَوْسَبِّحْ بِحَمْدِ رَبِّكَ. And I praise Allah. I thank Allah on your behalf. That's generosity. And you look at us now, we're alive. We're alive and we don't forgive people that are alive. And we're alive. We're alive and we don't seek forgiveness for other people. We're alive and we're stingy with our muhabba, with our love and generosity. He's not here anymore. Na'am. So that's advice number 7 is the king of all adab is generosity. Is it being able to, is generosity. Advice number 8, and he said maintain old friendships, relationships. In a hadith that comes from Imam al-Maruzi al-Faqih, our mother Aisha said, Inna Allah yuhibbu al-hifd al-wuddah. God loves the keeping of old friendships. Allah loves the keeping of old bonds. You all have a friend that you had for like 15 years, childhood friends? Childhood friends? Only one person raised their hand. 2, 3? No childhood friends here? 5, 6, 7, 8, 9? What? Okay, what? This is, of course, alhamdulillah. Wow, okay, so everybody started raising their hand. Do you keep in touch with your childhood friend? Huh? How often do you talk to each other? Once a month? You see them every day? If you didn't speak to the brother for 6 months, do you start right back up when you started? There's nothing there, right? Why is that the case? Is it really? Do you guys know I was on the phone with a brother in our community from Turkey. He was Brother Ali. He's a musician. Have you heard of him? You guys are Brother Ali? You can look him up on Spotify. But he's in Turkey. And I told him, Salam, I just said, you're my big brother. He said, I don't know if I'm your big brother. I just been in the dunya longer than you have. He's like, what does that mean? I just been in the dunya longer than you have. What does that mean? I was like, subhanAllah. You know what I'm saying? But and then do you know people that you've met, you've known for a minute, and it doesn't work. It could be a sibling, could be an uncle, could be an auntie, it doesn't work. You're not friends. You know, for a hot minute. And there are people that you've known for like a month, and you click, you're best friends. 5 months, 6 months, 7 months, you're best friends. This is a hadith around this to understand what friendship really is. The word for friendship in Arabic is as-sadiq. As-sadiq. Somebody who's what? Truthful to you. They'll never betray you. Which is a first sifa, attribute of the Prophet ﷺ before revelation. He's called what? What? As-sadiq al-amin, the truthful and the trustworthy. So the Sadiq is the one yusaddiqu bayna aydihim, that he's the one that affirms. So ultimately the first Siddiq is Allah as-Siddiq, one of the names of Allah, the one that affirms your reality. Like Allah is your best friend. Allah is your best friend. There's nobody that will be as loyal to you as God. He's your bestie, period. And that he's so close to you, he even calls the Prophet Khalilullah, my best friend. Ya Khalili Ibrahim, my best friend Abraham. The Khalil is the name of Sayyidina Ibrahim. But Khalil comes from the word Khali, which means something that is empty. It means that I've emptied everything in my heart and the only thing I have in my heart is you. That's a Khalil, somebody that's close to somebody. And then you have Al-Wudda, which is one of the names of love, which is a celestial name of God. But Allah Ta'ala is your closest friend. Imam Al-Haddad in his poem, he says, Husn al-dhan ulazim. My opinion of my Lord is always with me. My opinion of my Lord. Huwa halifi wa anisi. Wa khalifi wa anisi tul al-naila wa nahari. My opinion of my Lord, my beautiful opinion of my Lord. That is my ally. That is my friend. That is the one that protects me, and that's the one that I sit with all day and all night. Just having an opinion of your Lord. If you believe your Lord is wretched to you, Allah will show you wretchedness. But if you believe Allah Ta'ala is merciful to you, He'll show you His mercy. If you have a good opinion of Allah. Ana indi dhanni abdi bi. I'm in the opinion of my servant. If he has a good opinion of me, he will find me. And if he has a bad, he'll find me in that state. Whatever state he seeks me, he will find me. You have to have a beautiful opinion, almost a best friend opinion with your Allah, that you could actually talk to Allah on a daily basis. You FaceTime God. That's tahajjud. You FaceTime Allah. Nobody else, just Allah Ta'ala, you and Allah. That's friendship. And that comes down to now you and me in our community, which is that Allah talks about in the Quran, وَأَعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا. He says, and hold strong to the rope of Allah. وَلَا تَفَرِّقُوا, and don't separate from one another. فَاذْكُرُوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ عَلَيْكَ. Remember the blessings of Allah that is upon you. إِن كُنْتُمْ عَدَاء, when you were enemies, فَأَلَّفَ بَيْنَ قُلُوبِكُمْ وَأَصْبَحْتُمْ نِعْمَتِهِ إِخْوَانًا, that you were enemies, you hated one another, and He binded your hearts together. He made you lovers. He bound your hearts together. وَكُنْتُمْ فِي الْحَفْرَةِ النَّارِ, and you were in the heels of the fire. How many of us were in the heels of the fire and somebody grabbed us by the hand and saved us from it? Right? Listen, where the Prophet ﷺ said that paradise is on the heel of your closer, is as close to you as the heel of your sandal. Is paradise as close to you than your heel of your sandal? And they said, they took it as a glad tiding. He said, no, but also the fire is too. We're walking on hope and fear. It takes one step for us to be people that are tossed in the fire. So be humble upon your Creator. One step. We're one step away from shirk. We're one step away from kufr. I was talking to Sharif today on the phone, and we were talking about like what makes a good Muslim, bad Muslim, conservative, liberal Muslim. One thing we discussed is like, inshallah, like Islam is never going to be taken away from us. But then what if we wake up and our children they don't want to be Muslim anymore? What if our kids don't become Muslim? What guarantee our grandchildren be Muslim? And most of us in this room, wallahi, you would rather your child die young in a state of iman than live old in a state of kufr, state in disbelief, and leave Islam. And how much would you give for this faith? How much would you give for this faith? And that means that friendships have to be maintained. Because the maintainment of our iman is a maintenance of how good our community is. It's how good our community is. And that's why a lot of times, who knows anybody that is apostated from Islam? They've left Islam. Right? And ask yourself, are they apostating from Islam as the haqq, the truth, or somebody else's articulation of Islam? Allah's Islam, or like somebody else's articulation of Islam? And sometimes I talk to people and they tell me why they left. I was like, I would leave that too. What are you talking about? Like, who told you that? Who told you that? Are you following what I'm saying? Like, what are you talking about? And oftentimes, if we are communities, we're not a community of protecting our friendships. That might be the reason why our iman breaks or makes, is the idea of just having a community that provides "Tasimu bihablillah," hold strong to the rope of Allah, jami'an, not jami'an, together. And that's why the Prophet looks in what Imamuna Sayyidina Maulana Ali said, Babul Ilm, Karramallahu wajha, may Allah honor his face. He says something so beautiful in his diwan. He says, a community that is, with all of its imperfections, all of its difficulties, all of its sins, that is together, is far superior in the eyes of Allah than a perfect community that is separated from one another. A community that is together with all of their what? You name it. We got a drama, we got issues, we got tension, we got this, we got that, but that maintains togetherness is better than a perfect community that is what? That is segregated. That is segregated. And you know the story, Al-Habib Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam tells us that كَانَ عَذَبَ اللَّهُ قَوْمًا, Allah ordered the angels to punish a people. They punished the people. And He ordered them, He said, tell the angels, أَن يُقَلِّبُهُمْ, to do what? To flip them on their head. And the angels went, but one of the angels came back and said, Ya Allah, وَلَكِنَّ فِيهِمَا الرَّجُلُ الْعَابِدُ الصَّالِحِ, amongst them is a righteous servant of God. And what does Allah say? قَلِّبُهُمْ, flip him first. Flip him first. Why? Because no matter how much he worshipped and prayed and this and that, the fact that he did not maintain a friendship and call them to good makes him more guilty than them. How are people supposed to know about good if you don't give them good? How are people supposed to قُمْ فَأَنذِرْ, go and show people good. فَرَبُّكَ فَكَبِّرْ, and praise your Lord. وَطِيَابُكَ فَطَهِّرْ, and be beautiful and wear beautiful clothing to people. That's an order. You have a responsibility of giving da'wah. And the only way to give da'wah is to be friends with people and then maintain old friendships. And that means we're going to talk about friendships later. So Allah approves the keeping of old friendships, inshallah. And in advice number 9, He says, keep your friends' interests in heart and care for your neighbors. We learned through Ibrahim and Muhammad ibn Yahya ibn Abbas, who brought a gift to Ibn Zubayr, who said, someone who eats while his next door neighbor is hungry is not a believer. Someone who knows that their next door neighbor, which is in our religion, it's 70 houses to the right and 70, it's the whole neighborhood is your neighbor, not just right and left. There's a whole neighborhood, the whole team. And you know that they don't have a need a need, then they're not a believer. بالحي في المنطق. That means that if we can go to sleep eating, and while we're making dua and grateful for the food that Allah has given us, we're not thinking about people internationally, but also people domestically that we have an obligation to feed, and we're not making an attempt to do that, there's something deficient in our faith. There's something deficient in faith. The Prophet ﷺ said, feed people, even if it's by half a piece of bread. Even if it's by half a piece of bread. So there's an idea of like making sure that people are like, how are you okay? How do you call somebody a friend? How do you call somebody a friend if your last... See, it's easy to be friends with people when everybody is in a state of privilege, when everybody's given like goodness. But you know who your real friends are when you're going through it. You're going through it, and the ones that are actually going to stay. Right? Have I ever told you the story of the father that said, I have 3 friends? The son that said, I have 3 friends to his father. I have 3 good friends. His son comes to his father and said, I have 3 good friends. And the father said, I don't believe you have any friends. Crazy, right? Hey, Baba, I'm going to hang out with my friends. You don't have any friends, right? I'm going to kick my friend. Man, I'm going to invite my friends to my birthday. Man, who's your friends? You have friends? Who could be friends with you? He says, you don't have a real friend. And he said, my son, if you can get through this dunya with 1 real friend, then you're a lucky man. So he slaughters an animal, and he said, I want you to do something. He takes a shirt and he dips it in the goat's blood. And he gives it to him and he says, go to your friends and say, my father killed somebody. My father accidentally killed somebody, and see what they say. Goes to friend number 1, knocks on the door, opens the door. He says, I need your help. I need your help. My father accidentally killed somebody. What does friend number 1 do? He do what I would do if any of you showed up to my house. He closed the door on his face. He just closed the door on his face. And he said, see, that's 0 friend. That guy's not a friend. He's not your friend. He was a second person, knocks on the door, opens the door. He said, my father killed somebody. I need your help. It was by accident. And he said, looks around, he said, all right, come hide in the back. Right? And he's like, I'm just joking. My dad didn't really kill anybody, whatever. He goes back to his father. He said, this is what my friend number 2 did. He said, that's half a friend. That's half a friend. Goes to the third one, knocks on the door. Third one opens the door. He said, my father killed somebody. I need your help. I need your help. He killed somebody. They're going to, whatever. His third friend slapped him across the face as hard as he could. He said, don't ever talk about your father like that. Give that to me. I killed him. Get in. He said, I killed him. He said, that's a real friend. That's a real friend. I'll take a bullet for you. I'll fall for you, bro. I'll fall for you. Wallahi, I'll fall for you. How many? No, but it's real. And we live in an age of like, well, that's not efficient. My 401k doesn't allow me to be that type of friend. Because you know, I just booked this trip and I really wanted to go to Zion. I don't know how I have time to do this now, but can you hold on to it until I get back? Huh? The idea of friendship is, I believe my friend. If Muhammad said it, then it's true. Alayhi salatu wasalam. If Muhammad said it, then it's true. Ya Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. Ya Abu Bakr. If Muhammad said it, then it's true. Alayhi salatu wasalam. Right? That's friendship. When he comes back, he says, oh, Abu Bakr, I think I'm a prophet. He's like, word. I'm down. You know what I'm saying? Well, where are we signing up? Whose car are we taking? Right? Like, let's ride. So ride or die friend. So if you ride or die, you're not going to go to sleep. Such and such is hungry. Such and such, their wife just left him. Such and such, their father just got cancer. Such and such, they're in the hospital. Who's going to visit them? They should not have to worry about a thing. And that's why look at what the Prophet ﷺ says. Sayyidina Ibn Abbas, Sayyidina Abdullah bin Umar, the son of Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anhuma, comes to the Prophet ﷺ and he says, Ya Rasulullah, who's the best people? Like, who are the best people? The most beloved to Allah. Who are the best people to Allah? Like, Allah loves them. He says, أنفعهم للناس, the ones that benefit people. And he says, whomsoever goes to their brother or sister to fulfill a need. من مشى إلى إلى حاجة الأخيه. They walk to their brother or sister for a need. I'm thirsty, my brother just came and gave me water. That's it. You're thinking of like a big thing, launch good campaign. You're thinking about a GoFundMe. I'm talking about a small thing. You got it. Somebody got a Kleenex. Small. Hey, are you comfortable? Whoever walks to the need of their brother. خير أن يعتكف في هذه المسجد شهرا. It's better for them, that reward, than to pray i'tikaf in this mosque for 1 month. Whose mosque? The Prophet's mosque. And what's the reward for i'tikaf? 1 night of i'tikaf, سبع خنادق بينهما بين النار. 70 trenches between them in the hellfire. 7 trenches between, and further, one further and much than the other. Just for filling a need. Whomsoever stays until that need is fulfilled. Stays until that need is fulfilled. ثبت الله أقدامهم يوم يزول الأقدام. Allah will hold firm for them their feet on the day where feet slip. I need the day of judgment. And the 3 people, he gives them 3. And look at what you want to talk about fulfilling a need. يقضي الجوع. That they find their brother hungry and they feed them, or their sister hungry. ويثأدينه, right? That they're at the end, their debt, they fulfill a debt. You're in a tough spot financially, right? You got a tough spot. You can't pay rent. Some of the people say, bro, we got you. We'll get about 7 people, we'll split it. We'll take care of it. We'll take care of it. You don't need to worry about it. I got you. إن الله في عونة عبده ما دام عبده بعونة أخيه. Allah is always in the service of their brother or his servant, so long as they're in the service of their brother and sister. Allah will give it back to you tenfold. But there's no agenda. You don't think about who does things thinking about the reward you're going to get. Okay, if I do this, I get 1 hasana, but if I do this, I get 5. If I do that, I get 7. So I'm trying to be efficient here. What's my ROI? You just do it. Just do it from your heart. And then he said, وَمَنْ يَكْشِفُ كُرْبَتُهُ. You know what kurba is? Whoever relieves stress or anxiety from their brother or sister. They're not, and some of our friendships are more anxiety filled and anxiety relieving. It's more difficult for you to be my friend. There's more drama in my life. You bring so much, you're the friend that is always, you're the echo chamber. You're the one who people are just come because they just use you to put all of their garbage on you and vent all of their stuff on you. And it becomes a ghiba session about another friend, whatever. And you're just like, why am I more stressed out hanging out with this friend? Dude, why are you making me sad with you? I get it, but why are you making me sad with you? As opposed to you're with good companions. And that's why, what does he talk about? Friendships, right? In one of we're going to get to it, he says that one prefers their friends over their family. Why? Because family is so stressful, dude. Family isn't fun, but the nature of friendship is so you remove the friendship of your family from you, right? Well, you know what I'm saying? You all got to go home to a hostile environment at some point. Some of y'all, mom's not talking to you right now. Some of your dad's not talking to you right now. Some of y'all have 1-word answers from your dad. Some, whatever. Huh? Am I making this up? So you at the point of friendships is that you have somebody that, man, they were there the whole time. They were there the whole time for you. And the best way to serve your friend is to wake up at night and make dua for your friend. You make dua for your friend. The friend that nobody's making dua for, that nobody thinks about, that nobody's worried about. Right? Before the fame, the claim, the glory, the money, that you were there with them and they were there with you. And they're going to be with you when everybody leaves you. And they've never asked about you. And they never asked anything from you. They were always with you through thick and thin. That's your ride or die. Right? And they're na'am. So then he says, advice number 10. When you bring a gift of food that is in turn offered to you, then you must be extremely careful in your manners. We hear that Ibrahim ibn Hamad al-Abzari said that the Messenger of Allah said, "La tu'addid at-ta'am al-akhaka." Don't count the mouthful of the mouthfuls of your friend. When you're constantly taking hisab, you're taking account, right? The weirdest culture is going Dutch. You know what going Dutch? Well, you go, you split the bill, you eat. All right, so you had the Diet Coke, I had the regular, I had the large, you had the small. So you owe actually 70 cents more. So weird subculture that we created in the United States of America, right? Where it should be like, bro, don't worry. Like, you should be, you know, the whole fighting for the bill thing, right? There is a beauty in that. There's a beauty in that. I was with my teacher once, and he used to take me out every day. No, like once a week. Every day is exaggeration. Once a week. They take me out every day in Qaraween. And he used to teach me and he used to feed me. He'd take me out to eat. And once I started asking him, oh, are we going to go out now? He's like, no, I can't, I'm busy. Second time, can we go? No, you're busy. Third time, I'm busy, whatever. Then I'm like, oh, did I do something wrong? Like the sheikh, the alim, does he like, I'm the student, does he hate me? Did I do something wrong? Like, am I a bad student? I started feeling like depressed, like he wouldn't talk to me, whatever. Month and a half later, then he was like, okay, let's go back to eat. What, alhamdulillah. Oh, we'll do our thing again, whatever. And I was like, that was so weird. Like, why did he ghost me for a whole month? Boy, ghosted me. And I was hanging out with his son, and his son was like, hey, you know, my father's not upset at you, right? I was like, how'd you know that I thought? He was like, it was so obvious. I was like, yeah, he's not. He said, he always wants to take care of the bill and pay for your food. And we went through a really bad financial time, and he felt ashamed to take you, and he's not the one going to pay for the bill. So he wanted to wait until he's in a good position with money that he takes for it. He didn't want to be with you because he knew that you're going to pay for it then. That he didn't want to be the one, so he didn't want to hang out with you. Yani shuf al-adab, shuf karama. Who endangered species? Like, who thinks like this? Who thinks like this? I'm here thought the sheikh done ghosted me. And the sheikh found another. It's like, I was there. Is there somebody else? Is there another student? Is there like a new student? It's not, It's like, is he talking to another student on the student app? The swipe right? Like, hey, he was just like, no, I didn't want to be ashamed and be the student to spend for the sheikh. You guys know one of my teachers, Sheikh Muhammad al-Imam. One time I tried paying for the, and Wallah, Sheikh Muhammad al-Imam didn't, he's an Azhari alim. He doesn't have much money. Miskin Darib, he doesn't have much. And I remember I went to go pay. He said, Billahi alayk ala, he said, ala walidayya, upon my parents, you're never going to pay it. I was like, this is extreme. And I said, why? He said, هل والد يدفع لوالده? He says, الولد يدفع لوالده. He said, does a child pay for his father? Right? Like just words of expression. No counting. No, you did this once for me. Hey, remember, you got the last one, bro. Right? Whatever. It's your turn now. لا, you're actually fighting. وفي ذلك فليتنافس المتنافسين. And in that they compete. They compete in فاستبقون في الخيرات. That they compete in goodness. They envy each other in goodness. No, you did this for me. No, I'm gonna do more for you. Like almost this beautiful, centrifugal force of khidmah, of just we're gonna go out and I'm gonna take care of you. And you don't do to the whole, and that's why like don't have 100 friends, right? It's impossible. But you have like those 5 friends, and then you know it's real. I'll never count the friends, right? That they can come to my house. There was a man that came to Ad-Daqaq, and he said, his slave came to him, and he said to him, I have to tell you something about your friend. Your so-called friend. You know what he did? He came to your house without your permission when your wife was in the house. And he's talked to your wife, and he took something from your cupboard and he left. Can you believe that? In Ad-Daqaq said, فَبَشَّرْتَنِي, you've given me glad tidings, you're free. He said, why? He said, you've given me the beautiful glad tidings of my best friend thinks we're so close. My brother, he can just walk into my house with my wife and get what he wants, and I feel completely secure about it. Like, I don't have it. He's like, yeah, it's his. What's mine is yours. Mi casa tu casa. Beiti beitukum. Ala ra'si wa aini. Right? Ahlun wa sahlan. It's mine, it's yours, dude. It's not a question. Do you even have to ask? Right? Do you even have to ask? Like, I'm insulted. You have to ask me for stuff. Right? Hey, can I get something? Can I get something from the fridge? Bro, it's your fridge. Just take it. Just take it. Right? Just take it. Naam. You don't count the blessings of your friends more, that you don't take hisab. And he said, in affairs that are not, and this is important, in affairs that are not clearly sinful, be lenient with your friends. As the Prophet ﷺ said, the first sign of fatana, of intelligence, is to believe in Allah. An idiot doesn't believe in God. An idiot doesn't believe in God. The next is to be lenient with people in affairs of other than abandoning the truth. Be lenient with people. Now, what I mean by leniency, in order for something to be clearly sinful, if you see things that are haram, they're haram, period. We don't budge on the sharia, period. Something is impermissible, even if I'm not there yet, I don't say it's halal. I'm not there yet, right? But it's haram is haram. So we agree on that as a squad. What is haram is haram. eating swine, drinking the wine, the whole jazz. Impermissible. Zina, all the kaba'ir, lying, backbiting, all that is haram, right? All that is impermissible. But things that have gray area, be lenient on people. Be lenient on people. Celebrate calculations, moon sighting, be lenient on people. Right? Somebody, you know what I'm saying? If you don't know the thing is haram, wait, what is it? Look, and why? Where does this come from? Who is the biggest nemesis of Moses in the Quran? It's not a trick question. Huh? Pharaoh. Why did you not answer that collectively? It's Pharaoh. Who says he's Ana Rabbukum A'la, I'm your Lord Most High. And what does God say? He did what? He يَذَبِّحُونَ أَبْنَاءَكُمْ وَيَسْتَحْيُونَ نِسَاءَكُمْ. He started a genocide. He started a genocide, right? And Allah tells him and Aaron, Harun, to go speak to him. Who's he speaking to? Your really mean project manager at work? The board of the masjid? The friend that kicked you out of the WhatsApp group? Who's he speaking to? Huh? Fir'aun. How would you speak to Pharaoh? What does that mean? How would you speak to Pharaoh? أَذْهَبْ أَنْتَ وَأَخَاكَ إِلَى فَرْعَوْنَ فَإِنَّهُ طَغَى. You and your brother go to Pharaoh. He's gone astray. He's gone astray. How would you talk to Pharaoh? If you had to speak to Trump right now, how would you speak to him? You guys are asleep or something's weird off. Because there's no way you don't, like, they're not processing. How would you speak to Trump right now? If he was right in front, if he was right here, how would you speak to him? Like a baby? What? Words that are nice? Yeah? God. No? What would you do? What would you do? You berate him? Yeah. You wish death upon him, more or less. How would you speak to him? No. It's real. It's real. It's real. Everybody say wavelength? بالأدب. Allah yaftah alik. What does he say? Ya Allah, they say what? He says, go to Pharaoh. Go to Pharaoh. And go to Pharaoh, you and your brother, he's gone astray. Inna nakhafa, we're scared. And that maybe he does something to us. He plots against us. It's Moses, the army of Pharaoh, Haman and Pharaoh, and Moses and Aaron sitting there with nothing but a staff. And I gotta go talk to Pharaoh. What does Allah say? وَقُولُوا لَهُمْ قَوْلٌ لَيِّنًا أَن يَتَذَكَّرْ أَوْ يَخْشَى. And speak to him super gently. Perhaps he'll remember and he'll fear, or he'll fear. Nobody remind Allah saying, well, your job is to speak to Pharaoh beautifully. Lenience on Pharaoh. Pharaoh. Be lenient on Pharaoh. And he says, we're scared. لا تخاف إنني معكما. Don't ever fear. I'm with you. He says, sorry, before that he says, ولا تنيا في الذكر. Don't be remiss of my remembrance. Meaning the people of dhikr, the people that remember Allah all the time, they're lenient. And the people that forget Allah are rigid, are rough. The Messenger of Allah said, listen to this. You want to be Muslim? You want to give da'wah to people? He says, لا دخل شيء عنف إلا شانه ولا دخل إلى شيء ولا دخل شيء رفقا إلا زانه. Nobody presents something, even if it's the truth, with roughness except it becomes ugly to them. And nobody presents something with gentleness except it beautifies that thing. It beautifies that thing. But how beautiful, how gentle are we with pharaohs? And when I mean pharaoh, you don't think you have pharaoh in your house? You have pharaohs in your community? We have people that are living with pharaohs in domestic violent situation, domestically violent situations. You have the pharaoh of racism. You have the pharaoh of socio-economical degradation. All of that, you have that. You have pharaohs everywhere. قولوا لهم قولا لينا. No, speak to them beautifully. Maybe they remember. And then he says, ولا تنيا في الذكر. And they said, but we're scared. ولا تخافا. Don't fear. Don't fear. I'm with you. I'm with you. Asma wa ara. I see and I hear. I hear and I see everything. You're in the presence of Allah. You know, you see the awliya who are in the presence of Allah all the time. They're thinking about Allah all the time. When you're with them, they're just in a state of sukoon. Everything is lenient. Why are you worried about this? Why are you worried about this? Brother, subhanAllah, there was no brother's entrance and sister's entrance at the event. I don't know what's going to happen. Yeah, chill. Chill out. Alhamdulillah. I've never had a single teacher who's ever seen it. There was a teacher in Indonesia. And do you guys know what nasheeds are? Nasheeds? They're songs of praise, Islamic music, whatever you want to call it. And he came to give da'wah in Indonesia, and he's from the Yemen, and there was an apartment, and they would have a majlis, maybe 7 or 8 people in this majlis. And outside was this band that they would play music, and they would smoke pot, smoke marijuana, and smoke cigarettes. And every day the sheikh would come down and say, when are you going to come to Majlis? When are you going to sing for us? Did he say, when are you going to sing Islamic music? When are you going to sing nasheed? When are you going to sing for us? Sheikh turban, big beard, shawl on his right. Sheikh alim. When are you going to sing for us? When are you going to let us host you? So, no, it's not our vibe. We don't really do that thing. We don't. Second day, when are you going to let us sing? Come on, when are you going to come? I invited you. No. The third or fourth time, one guy comes like, Sheikh, you know what? They're not going to tell you, but they're shy because we smoke a lot of cigarettes and we know we're going to need a cigarette break after we smoke. And we're shy to come in front of you. He says, come, I'll buy you the cigarettes. Don't do this. Don't do this. Don't do this. But it's a learning lesson. Don't do it. If you do it, don't say, I told you to do it. They're like Mosaic promotes. Don't. Wallahi don't. Haram alaykum. Allah ta'alik. Don't do it. Don't do it. Sarapa, I'm not promoting. It's important. I'm not. Fahad, HR. He said, I'll buy it. They're like, okay, fine. He came, he hosted them. Great area. 20 years later, they're the teachers of the munshideen today in Indonesia. They're the head munshideen. They're the head devotional singers of Indonesia. Right? All because the sheikh said, you come, like, go kick it. Dude, don't worry about it, come kick it. You open your house, you're just being lenient on people. And that's Pharaoh. If Allah tells Moses to be lenient on Pharaoh, then what is the believers then? What about each other? What about people that are already Muslim? What about what about people that are not, we're not Muslim, but they're like not Pharaonic? They're not hurting you. And the non-Muslims that have more Islam than Muslims to you, they're more generous than Muslims to you at times. Allah says in the Quran, perhaps in the non-Muslims there's a good example for you. It's in the Quran, Surah Al-Mumtahana. Look it up. Perhaps in them there's a good example for you. And then Allah says, the Prophet ﷺ, فَبِمَا رَحْمَةِ اللَّهِ لِنْتَ لَهُمْ. It was from the mercy of your Lord, Surah Al-Imran, that you were gentle on people. He says, if you were harsh-hearted, they would have fled away from you. Does that mean we're a bunch of pushovers? Does that mean that when something is haram, that we don't call it out? Absolutely. Privately, if it's individual. Publicly, if it's a public fisq, right? If you go see, like, there's an Islamic thing and there's like a party boat with, you know what I'm saying? With explicit lives, not that say party boats are haram, but there's a haram party, a halal party boat, haram party boat, a haram party boat, right? You don't look at it and say, you know what I'm saying? But you say it's haram, you say it's impermissible. But you also have to have a good opinion of those people. Abi Yazid al-Bastami al-Baghdadi from Baghdad, great alim, scholar. He was with his companions, his students, and there was a party boat, young men and women dressed scantily. They were doing some funny business. They were having a good time. They were doing their thing, you know what I mean? And the students got upset. Ya Sheikh, idu alayhum. Sheikh, like, pray against them. You know what he said? Allahumma kama farahtum fi dunya ifruhum fil akhirah. Oh Allah, as you've made them happy in this dunya, make them happy in the akhirah. And he said, Ya Sheikh, we said pray against them, not for them. He said, Wa ana arham min mawlay, and I'm more merciful than my Lord. And I'm more merciful than my Lord. That That doesn't mean you say this is halal, but you're just like, I'm not calling, Habibi, I'm not calling out your haramness or this type of transgression because I want something to happen to you that's bad. I'm calling out because I want something good for you. I want good for you. I don't want you to behave in such a undignified way. The way you're behaving, it's not dignified for a behavior, for a believer. So you do it gently. If you were harsh-hearted, they would have fled away from you. They wouldn't have entered Islam. And you talk about us. So Allah says what? And the Prophet's talking to the kuffar, the disbelievers. He said what? فَعَفُوا عَنْهُمْ. So forgive them. Forgive them. People are going to make mistakes. They're going to rub you the wrong way. Forgive them. فَأَسْتَغْفِرْ لَهُمْ. And seek forgiveness for them. فَشَاوَرْ عَنْهُمْ بِأَمْرِي. And start to seek counsel, like to them. Be like, hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? Even if you have the answer, create spaces of inclusion where people matter. People's opinions matter. That people are most people go away from God because they feel like they have nothing to give this world. So they become materialistic. So they become consumers, not producers. But if you could shine a light on people and you show them the qualities of production that God has already given them through His names, then people will flee to Allah. They'll flee to Allah. So seek shawa'id. وَإِذَا عَذَمْتَ. And if you have made your decision, فَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ. Have tawakkul on Allah. Don't forget, we're not the ones that guide people. Who guides people? Allah. We're not the ones that gives people their opening. Allah gives people their opening. And just as He's given us an opening, He could close that door for us in a split second. So be lenient with people. If things are not explicit, how do you know things are not explicitly haram? You actually have to study Islam. You have to study Islam, inshallah. And inshallah, at Mosaic, we're going to have an Aqidah class for those of you that want to study like Aqidah, our theology, and a fiqh class on Fard Ain, if you're interested, inshallah ta'ala. With an ijazah for those that want an exam. There'll be like quizzes and stuff for those over here, inshallah. Nothing crazy, don't freak out. But it'll be something, inshallah ta'ala, for us to know. But you have to know Allah, you have to know the hukum, you have to know the sharia. And once you realize you study the sharia, you'll realize most of it is vast. And most people that are around you, 90% of their life is what? It's halal. It's permissible. Most of the things you do is probably halal. It's the 5 or 10%. We unfortunately live in a time where the 5 and 10% is we just have full access to it all the time. So be careful of the shaitan. Be careful of the nafs. Be careful of the ego, right? Even if it means by eating and saying Bismillah with your right hand, iltazum bi shari'atillah. Like adhere to the sharia of Allah. Naam. But be lenient on people. Imam al-Rifa'i, he said he had so much knowledge of Islam that if he saw somebody doing haram, he would know a condition where that haram would other be halal. That's why they say al-faqih, the jurist, yushaddi ala nafsihi, that he's difficult on himself, right? Wa yas'a ala akhirihi, and he's easy on other people. But us, we're what? In our time, we're difficult on other people, but we're really easy on ourselves. We give ourselves excuses. We give ourselves, I know, but I'll take the rukhsah for prayer, inshallah. I'll combine in this thing, inshallah. I'll pray tomorrow. I'll do whatever, right? I won't do, inshallah. I know it's haram, but I'll give myself a rukhsah because, Allah knows what's in my heart. But when it comes to other people, it's what? It's how, look, isna ma'ashittum, do whatever you want. Kama tudinu tudan. However you deal with others, Allah will deal with you. If you're lenient on Allah, Allah will be lenient on you. If you're forgiving on others, Allah will forgive you. When we talk about Fath al-Makkah, the opening of Mecca, where Al-Habib sallallahu alaihi wasallam is coming back home, winning a war, and opening up Mecca Mukarramah, and time? Okay. And coming back to the place where he was born, his Mawlid. And he has to, who wants to come back and be welcome to their homeland by conquering the people? You want to come back with open arms. And he comes with his head down, and they point in the house of Abu Sufyan, and they said, Ya Rasulullah, innaha yawm al-intiqama. Today is the day of vengeance. Everything they did to us, the murder of Sayyidah Khadija, the murder of your children, all of that, the murder of Hamza, we're going to avenge it today. Your uncle, your best friend, we're going to avenge it today. He says, La tatrib alaykum fil hada yawm. There is no vengeance upon you today. فَأَنْتُمْ تُلَقَى. All of you are forgiven. And 2/3 of the companion, radiallahu anhum, become Muslim that day. become Muslim that day. You know, and that's leniency on people. Leniency on what? If your hijab is Burberry or from hot hijab? Well, if your beard is what? This big or this big? What's your leniency on? Your leniency on, can I have the ability to open the doors of the garden for people because I want to see them in Jannah with me. And if I want good for them, then Allah will want good for me. Naam. And advice number 12, get along with friends. Get along with each other and help them. That Sa'id al-Khudri radiallahu anhu said, a man prepared a feast for the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the food was brought and he declined to eat and he said, Inni sa'imun, I'm fasting. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, your brother has invited you. He went out of a lot of trouble for you. Eat now and just make up your fast. Shuf al-adab. Shuf adab al-Habib sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Look at the adab of the Prophet. That he said, look, this man he's cooked day and all night for you. And he came and offered you food. I know you're fasting the Nawafil fast. But to make him feel good, why don't you just break your fast? Why don't you just break your fast? Right? Fasting is one of the best forms of worship. Fasting is one of the best forms of worship. When we don't fast enough as a community. Mondays and Thursdays, fasting the white days, fasting Ashura fast, inshallah, all of the fasts. But even that, when food was presented that his brother presented to him, the Prophet, so you guys, he thinks he's doing something right. No, brother, I'm fasting. I can't do it. He thinks he's doing something. Is there anything wrong with not eating when you're fasting? Is there anything wrong with it? There's nothing wrong. But what is ihsan, what is better is my brother or my sister has cooked for me and served me food. Just for them, I'll break my fast. Just for them, I'll break my fast. Right? Meaning you've, in one sense, you fought the ego and you said, I will do this for the sake of Allah. I'll even break my nawafil fast for the sake of Allah. Naam. And that's why friendship is split into three things. You have Allah in the middle, and you have friendship in humanity. In humanity. That you have what's called an-nas, al-am, the people. You got, people ask me, can I have, like, if I was in like youth stuff, can I have non-Muslim friends? Right? And I was like, well, the question reeks of weirdness. What do you mean, can you have non-Muslim friends? Like, yeah, like it's haram to have non-Muslim friends. And unfortunately, some of your non-Muslim friends, quote unquote, probably have more Islam in them than your Muslim friends. Unfortunately. Saha wala. Jabran? We're probably safer sometimes with non-Muslims than Muslims. May Allah forgive us and protect us. Yeah, you have friendship in humanity. And that's everywhere. That's everywhere. That's people where like, wa rahmati wasid kul shay. There was a story of a Zoroastrian, you know what a Zoroastrian is? A Majusi. They're fire worshippers. And like Mazda, Mazda, the car company, that's like the name of their god. Ahura Mazda. It's like fire, it's all power, right? And he used to have a bunch of workers as an employee. Amongst them was a wali, a saint of Allah, a sage, an al-salih. And he was fasting in Ramadan, and the Majusi, the fire worshipper, the Zoroastrian, wouldn't eat in front of him or eat in front of the Muslims. And when his son came to eat once, he smacked him. He's like, don't you see the Muslims are fasting for Allah? Have some reverence for them. Don't eat in front of them. Have some adab. Look how amazing their ibadah is. And he was in awe of the obedience. He just never became Muslim. He dies, and the wali sees him in a dream a month later, and he sees him bathing in the gardens of paradise, eating from the fruits of paradise. And he says, you're a kafir, like explicitly. How did you enter the garden? He said, how merciful is your Lord. He saw my love for the obedience of his believers to him, and he equated that to me as faith, and he gave me the garden. He gave me the garden. Brotherhood in humanity is being such a good Muslim, both in terms of worship, in terms of efficacy, in terms of truthfulness, that people look at you and they see you as a sign of God, and perhaps faith will enter their heart. That's friendship in humanity. The Muslims don't behave. I could trust the Muslims. I could always trust the Muslims. Sayyidina Abu Sufyan and Abu Jahl, who were in the height of their enmity for the Prophet ﷺ, in wage war, they would still give their money to the Rasul. It's like, we don't trust anybody else with our money but him at the end of the day. We don't trust anybody but the believers, but him. He's not going to do any funny business. They're always going to tell me the truth. And then you have friendship in Islam and friendship in God. Friendship in humanity is where Allah says, الَّذِينَ أَخْرَجُوا مِنْ دِيَارِهِمْ بِغَيْرِ حَقٍّ إِلَّا أَنْ يَقُولُونَ رَبَّنَا وَلَوْلَا دَفَعَ اللَّهِ لِلنَّاسِ بَعْضُهُم بِبَعْضٍ لهدمت الصوامع والبيع والصلوات والمسجد يذكر فيها اسم الله كثير وينصرون الله من ينصره إن الله القوي العزيز. It's a beautiful verse in the Quran that as for the ones that are taken away from their homes without their right. Sound familiar? Sound familiar? Illa, for saying what? Illa an yaqula Rabbuna Allah. Because they say, my Lord is Allah. My Lord is Allah. وَلَوْ دَفَعَ اللَّهُ لِلنَّاسِ بَعْدُهُمْ لِبَعْدٍ لِهَدَمْتُ. That he will wipe them off the face of this earth if it wasn't for the worshippers in the churches, in the synagogues, in the temples, and the mosques. Why couldn't Allah just say masjid? Why couldn't Allah just say masjid? He says what? He says what? He says, وَالْبِعْ وَالصَّلَوَاتِ وَالْمَسْجِدْ يَذْكُرُ فِيهَا اسْمُ اللَّهِ كَثِير. In the place where God's name is mentioned. Allah, if it wasn't for them, Allah would wipe you out the face of the earth. He could have just said Muslims, right? That there is and this is not interfaith. We don't do like the interfaith. I have a weird thing with interfaith because it's kind of like what are we doing here? Like, what is this? Like, we're not convincing anybody of anything here. Are you following what I'm saying? We don't need interfaith. We just do Islam. Like if you do Islam, you don't need interfaith. But I need to just be Muslim. Just be Muslim. Are you following what I'm saying? Right? What is the verse in the Quran? Allah says, "Ma ahsan al-qawl man da'a ila Allah wa 'amila 'amal salih wa qala innani min al-muslimin." The ones that call to what? Allah. They do righteous deeds and they say we're Muslims. We do the opposite. We say we're Muslims. If we have righteous deeds, we'll do بعد البال شوية إن شاء الله بالملأ مرتين إن شاء الله شوية. If we have time, and then we'll call to Allah if we have a hobby, part-time job. I'm bored, I've retired, inshallah ta'ala. If I'm traumatized in the house, I'm going to volunteer in the masjid. I don't want to do it with my wife. Right? I'll volunteer in the masjid. But the opposite, and they say whatever. One of my teachers, Sheikh Idris al-Fasi al-Fihri, he was a grand Sheikh of the Qarawiyyin. He said to me after I graduated, if you have to say I'm Muslim, you're not doing Islam right. If you have to say this is Islam, you're not doing Islam right. Just be as Muslim as you possibly can. That's in humanity. And through that, and forgive the arrows, that was the thing. I didn't know how to move it back up. Sorry. But the first one is family. Some of you have non-Muslim family members. You have non-Muslim family members. And you ask, how do I, how deal with not? What do you mean, how do you deal with your non-Muslim family members? Inshallah, if they're not hostile and aggressive to you, you deal with them like any other mom. You know what I'm saying? We were I used to work in a masjid in the south side of Chicago on 6th Street and Holman. And there was a brother that came in, and his name was John. He just became Muslim. And his dad died a week before he became Muslim, or like a week after he became Muslim. You know when they go to the masjid and they ask the imam to make dua? He did the thing where he's like, just going through it. Can you pray for my father? He died. He said, oh, what's your name, John? He's like, oh, it's a non-Muslim name. What's your father's name? Like, whatever. Was he Muslim? He's like, no. He's like, I'm sorry, brother. Like, his affairs with Allah, we can't make dua for him. And I was like, it's great. First week. Great first week as a Muslim, right? Ahlan wa sahlan. Welcome to the family. First week, the imam says, sorry, your dad's damned forever. Huh? And then you look at Al-Habib sallallahu alayhi wa sallam wa Ali. Shuf. There is when we say don't do it, we don't pray janazah over a non-Muslim dead. We don't bury them with us. That's jaiz, right? Abdullah ibn Ubay, who's a chief of the hypocrites, throws the ifk, slanders our mother Aisha radiallahu anha. And who dares slander her? Slanders Aisha radiallahu anha, the wife of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Calls her an adulteress. May Allah protect us from even saying that. His son is on the curb of the road and his eyes are wet. Ibn Abdullah. And the Prophet said, what happened? He's shy. He doesn't want to tell the Prophet because Abdullah ibn Ubay, he doesn't want to tell the Prophet. He said, he's shy that he's grieving for the chief of the hypocrite's father. And at one time before that, He hated the Prophet so much that his son came to the Prophet and said, Ya Rasulullah, can you drink from this cup? And he said, why? He said, I want you to drink from it and give it to my father. So perhaps if he drinks from your saliva, faith will enter his heart. So he did it. He said, Hadr, he'll do it. He gives it to his father. And he said, Ya abati, oh my father, can you drink from qad sharabta fiha Rasulillah? The Prophet has drunk from it. I'd rather drink the piss of a cow than drink from that man. That's what he said. I'd rather drink the urine of a cow than drink from Muhammad. That's how much he hated the Prophet. So he's sitting now, fast forward, he's crying. But Ya Rasulullah, mata abi, my father passed away. The Prophet said, why didn't you tell me? Your father died. And he runs to the burial. He's being buried right now in the grave of the kuffar. He runs to him. In the companion, he comes and he says, he starts saying, tell him to say the shahada. Tell him to say la ilaha illallah. Tell him to say the shahada. Ya Rasulullah, he's dead. It's gone. He's dead. He's not going to come back. The Prophet says, takes his shirt off as his son is washing him. He takes his shirt off, throws it on his dead body, and spits on it. And he says, perhaps he'll meet Allah with my clothing on it and the saliva of a prophet, and Allah will forgive him. Chief of the hypocrites. Chief of the hypocrites. Are you all following what I'm saying? Yeah, brotherhood and humanity. Alayka afdal salatu salam. And what did that do to the iman of Ibn Abdullah? Don't worry, I got your back. I still care about your father and I care about you no matter what. Where's our iman? People die and almost good riddance. Good riddance, Trump. Sorry, what's his son's name? Whatever. The Baron, like, sorry, Baron. As opposed to being like, Baron becomes a Muslim. Is he invited in our spaces? Or are we going to remind him about his father? Right? Are we going to remind him about his father? Do you know who Abu Jahl is? Do you know what his real name is? Do you think his name is father of ignorance? Do you know what his real name is? Umar. The Prophet prayed, Allahumma strengthen his religion by the best of the two Umars, Umar ibn Khattab, Umar ibn Abdullah. He prayed for Abu Jahl. He prayed for Abu Jahl. And Ikramah becomes Muslim, his son. Muhaddith, Ikramah. And the Prophet brings a companion, and he said, from this day on, nobody calls his father Abu Jahl. He calls him Umar ibn Abdullah. He said, why, Mashallah? His son became Muslim. You're going to call his father Abu Jahl in front of him? You're going to call his father Abu Jahl in front of him? That young buck becomes Muslim. What are we going to do? Start making fun of his dad? So that's brotherhood in Islam. So we talk about, and then we talk about families. Of course you go to Christmas with you don't believe Jesus is the Son of God. Why is it so complicated? You say, Barakallah fikum, thank you, mom. Spend time and you leave. Why is this? You don't complicate things that Allah has not made complicated. Don't complicate things that Allah has not made complicated. You and your non-Muslim parents, so what, dude? Just your mom. Jannah's still under her feet. The Prophet doesn't say otherwise, right? You just don't believe in, you believe in La ilaha illallah. Khalas. And then other communities. And then you serve humanity. Sheikh Mawla Hashim told me, I asked him, Sheikh, now we know how to serve Muslims. How do we serve non-Muslims? He says, don't ever ask me a question like that. I said, why, Sheikh? He says, we never, bil khidma la nutamayyiz bayna muslim ghayrihi. In service, we never differentiate between a Muslim and a non-Muslim. The service of the Muslim is vast. And then he says, and producing and maintenance and culture, that we have to now stop trying to be like white to become like Muslim, good Muslims. Stop trying to steer white. We don't need to do we need to create our own production. We need to create our own art, our own khidmah, our own institutions. Eid should be a national holiday. We don't need to do Christmas. We got Eid. What you gonna do? What? We don't need. We got our own beautiful halal music. That's not like Nicki. Sorry. We don't need. We don't need that. We don't need to twerk. Why would we do that? No. Why would we do that? Oh, brother, is it halal? Why? It's something that's undignified. Not non-Muslims do it. It's something that is not befitting of a human being to do. It's something not befitting of a what? A human being to behave like this, right? Humans don't behave like this. وَلَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا الْمُسْلِمِينَ. Huh? Okay, we've honored. وَلَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا ibn Adam. We've honored all of the children of Adam. You're supposed to teach people what it means to be a dignified person. Dignified person, and then produce a beautiful culture. That's in humanity. Almost done. And then you have Islam. And that's whether you like the Muslim, whether you don't like the Muslim, whether he's your uncle's cousin's niece, whether he invited you to the walima, whether he didn't, it doesn't matter. They have rights. Right? Allahu wali waladina amanu. Allah is the wali of the ones that believe. Period. Whether you like it or whether I like it. You say salam to them. They have the right of visitation. They have the right of funerals. They have the right of housing. And they have the rights of having jobs. And they have the right of your dua. Period. Whether you like them, whether you don't like them, whether they have beef, whether they stole your man, whatever. Whatever that is. MSA drama? Huh? I was supposed to be on Shura. Like everybody knows I'm the treasurer. Like who's this new, you know what I'm saying? Huh? You know what I'm saying? I can't believe they didn't put yellow curtains at Islam Awareness Month and they chose the green ones when we've been doing yellow the whole time. You still have your rights. It doesn't matter. You guys are laughing because you know this happens. And then you have the last one. God. Brotherhood in Allah. It transcends everything. And that's what's called ihsan. You don't worry about the rights of somebody. If you're getting into a relationship, marriage or friendship, discussing your rights, you shouldn't be in that relationship. Right? You shouldn't be in that relationship. It's, am I willing to give up my rights for you? That's brotherhood in Allah. That's sisterhood in Allah. I'm willing to give up my place for you. وَلَوْ كَانَ بِهِمْ خَصَاصَةً. I know it's mine, but this is your seat for the day, brother. I appreciate you. That's brotherhood in Allah. And that means that's something that even the Prophet ﷺ couldn't do. What does Allah say? وَأَنْ يَخْدُعُكَ فَقُلْ حَسْبِيَ اللَّهُ. And if they want to if they leave you and abandon you, حَسْبُكَ اللَّهُ. لَوْ أَنْفَقْتَ مَا فِي الْأَرْضِ جَمِيعًا. If you were to spend all the money in the world, O Muhammad. Remember that Beatles song, You Can't Buy Me Love? You know what I'm talking about? You too old for this? I'm too old for this? Okay, thank you, Gen Z. You can't purchase love from people. Can't put a price on muhabba. You can't buy it. If somebody hurts you, they hurt you. Yeah, it doesn't matter how much you give, right? If I did, somebody comes to you and says, "Hey man, be like, can you just be friends with them? It doesn't matter. I'll give you $1 million, man. Be friends with them." It's like, nah, dude, what they did to me is unforgivable. Unforgivable. Can't buy love. Can't purchase muhabba. What does Allah tell the Prophet? لَوْ أَنْفَقْتَ مَا فِي الْأَرْضِ جَمِيعًا. If we had Mosaic had infinite budget, inshallah, ameen, ya Rabbi. Infinite budget. If our masjid had infinite this, if we had all of this stuff together, if only we had this much of money, this whatever, Allah will give us victory. If you spend all of it, وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ أَلَّفَ بَيْنَهُم مَا أَلَّفْتَ بَيْنَ قُلُوبِهِمْ وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ أَلَّفَ بَيْنَهُم. Oh, you Muhammad, you wouldn't be able to bind their hearts together. Allah bound their hearts together. Allah did this. Allah made them muhibbeen. This is from Allah. That they saw Allah together. That they witnessed Allah together. Right? That's what this Imam is talking about. Futuwa is brotherhood in Allah, sisterhood in Allah. So we ask Allah, lana wa lakum kamal al-tawfiq walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Q&A? No? We have questions, answers, concerns, criticisms. Yes, ma'am. What was your name? Yeah. Madiha. Hate themselves for what? Islam, or they're not wearing it?
Like they are wearing it right now. They look at themselves in the mirror and they have this taste. I think it's something wrong with themselves. How do you like go about that? It's like I have a couple of friends like struggling with that now. And it's like a really weird. I don't know where how to.
Well, the first thing is the Prophet ﷺ, when you saw when people enter his way, he said, "Fatahajjibu." He told his wife, wear hijab. He told wear it. So shar'an, there's no khilaf on if it's wajib or not, or like sunnah, whatever. It's considered a wajib. Like it's a wajib. Whether you do it or not, it's considered wajib. we also do live in a very difficult time, you know, like Instagram and being in a non-Muslim society or a place that celebrates nakedness. There is a reality that just covering the aura would be like covering like the bare minimum is like a Muslim thing to do now. So in the summertime, you walk through Michigan Avenue, you know it's covered. You know what I mean? But a time will come where just if you're wearing decent clothing, you'll be considered like a Muslim, you know? I think one of the things to give consolation is like the struggle that people have with it, Allah gives them ajr for that. But also their disdain of a piece of cloth that's on their head doesn't make them a good Muslim or bad Muslim. It's like religious, non-religious, good Muslim, bad Muslim. You follow what I'm saying? You follow what I'm saying? And we do, for those of us that fulfill the obligation of hijab, we don't do it as a piece of cloth of identity. We do it because Allah told us to do it. And that's our spiritual relationship with the Creator. It has nothing to do with our identity, right? It's not an identitarian thing. But it's the idea that we're people that are exemplifying something. And there are different levels. The first is covering your aura. And there are different levels. Some people, hijab has to be this way or something to just cover. But I think we've demonized this idea of appearance so much and not empathized the influence of like people looking beautiful all the time, or what is considered a woman that is this, or a woman or a man that is beautiful, a woman that is beautiful, and objectified each other so much that people are like, almost hate themselves for doing something that they believe is obedience. And the shaitan wants you to hate obedience. And that comes with trauma, that comes with this, and it comes with that. And maybe they've been forced upon it, and nobody can force it. La ikraha fi din. But one should not do it because of fear of their mother, or their family, the community. You should do it as a trajectory of your faith and your commitment to Allah Ta'ala when it's right for them. My advice for them is you give them glad tidings. And we have to make things beautiful again and make things dope, dude. Like, why can't we look beautiful and edgy and awesome, but also be under the confines of the Sharia? Like, who said that's not the key? Like, do you know Sukaina? Have you heard of Sukaina? Ibn Abi Sayyidina Hussein? Imam Sayyidina Hussein's daughter was named Sukaina bint Hussein. She was called the Diva of Baghdad. The Diva of Baghdad. And she used to have something called, like, she wore sandals. She used to wrap her sandal a certain way. And all the women would be like, did you see what Sumayya's rocking? Sukaina be rocking the new stuff. And they would all do the same exact thing, right? And she used to have something called a thuraya. A thuraya is a universe, but a thuraya, it was like a little curl that she kept in the front, right? And that was her. She wore hijab and a little thuraya, right? And all the girls did what? They started rocking thuraya, right? But she was what's called the fashion diva of Baghdad, right? Al-Muzayyanatul Baghdad, Muzakhrafatul Baghdad, literally. So you have things that don't make me feel less than. But I think as Muslim women, and this as a man, I don't know the struggle. Like, I'll never be able to be like, we could be Mexican Catholics from Mexico City, Puerto Ricans who've just become Muslim, you know what I'm saying? Or vice versa. We could be anything. We could come off as anything. And now, like, everybody and their mama got a beard now. You know what I mean? Like, you could, right? It's more difficult for women always. So I'm also saying this with the thing, with, you know, just a nuqta. But we have to also be able to produce a culture of modesty as opposed to a culture of indignity. And that comes with people that are not covering all the way to people that are covering, is that we create a culture of modesty in the way we interact with one another between genders, which doesn't need to be whatever, but also doesn't need to be like, you know what I'm saying? Like, and a culture of modest behavior in the way we speak and we talk, and then in the way that we dress. Right? And I think that's something that you guys got to decide. And when the sister is going through her disdain of it, you got to let her go through it for a bit. Like, validate it. You know why? Because it's hard. It's tough. And it's okay to be like, this is really, really difficult for me. This is really difficult for me. Being Muslim isn't easy all the time. Do you know what I mean? I'm sure for you, like, to go to the beach and just seeing women have the wind in their hair and stuff, and you're like, bro, if I could have a spot. You know what I'm saying? Am I making this up? And you're just like, ugh. I got to find a private place, look around. You know what I'm saying? It's tough, right? So there's a level of also leniency, and there's a level of also just not reducing Islam to a piece of cloth. Reducing Islam to a piece of cloth. And that conversation needs to be had. But encourage her. And I think beautify her. and be in her moment, and you don't need to be like, oh, but you're beautiful inside out. Just be with her, bro. Let her vent. Just let her vent. You know? Does that answer your question? Allah make it easy, inshallah.
So you talk about keeping friendships, especially old ones, and being lenient in general, and that ideally sounds wonderful to me. But practically, how do you take into consideration our own temptations and our own ability to being dragged into wrongdoings ourselves through friendships as well?
Yeah, what's your name, bro?
Awesome.
Basil. That's a beautiful question. The Prophet ﷺ says companionship is like being with a perfumer or a blacksmith. If you are going to be with the blacksmith, even if you're not a blacksmith, you will come back with sod. Right? You will come back with sod. But if you're with the perfumer, even if you're not, just being in their presence, you will smell of perfume. We have to keep good company always. And there are friends that are not great for you. And they're not friends that are great for you. And if your friend doesn't want your best interest and is pulling you towards goodness, then that friend doesn't want your best interest. And I even mean that friends are going through difficult things. One of my friends converted in college, famous, I'm not going to mention his name, but he's like my best friend. And he met the Muslims in the first, weirdly enough, the Muslims that welcomed him are Muslims that were from the party scene, right? They were in the clubs and stuff. And they found out he became Muslim. They're like, bro, congrats, you're Muslim now. MashaAllah, welcome, whatever. And they're like, hey, I want to hang out with you. You know what they said? Hey, dude, look, we're not like the best Muslims and we party a lot. Don't hang out with us. Like, we'll be there to be with you right now, but we're not really the greatest Muslims. Like, we just inherited this thing. I have more respect of a person like that than to just drag him in and be like, whatever. He's like, you should go hang out with those people and go to those things because we like drink and do stuff, right? Like, we won't do it in front of you, but like, we won't take you anywhere. But you know what I mean? No, that's what I'm saying. That's one iteration of it. But that's a friend that is struggling with something, but he's never going to make you like, hey, if I'm going down, I'm taking you with me, right? That's one friend who's like that. I think we should, be very clear of not popularizing sin and celebrating sin. If you're sinning, we should keep it private and we shouldn't popularize it. We're in a time where we popularize sin, right? And celebrate sinful behavior. But also is to be okay with maintaining friendships is not going above and beyond and being with that person the whole time, wherever they are, and validating them. Sometimes the best thing you can do for your friend is distance yourself from a friend. فَيَقُولُ الْقُرْبَةِ الْحِجَابِ. Closeness is a veil at times. You follow what I'm saying? Closeness is a veil. And it's really difficult. But all you know, hey, listen, man, I can't hang out with you here when you're doing this stuff, but I can hang out with you here and here and here. And if you need anything, you got my number. But I just don't do things like that, right? There's nothing wrong with that. And you may not just have to do with a friend, you may have to do with a blood brother, a blood sister. Sah wala. Famtini aliyah. So there's a level of not abandoning your friend, and that means not losing hope in them and not leaving them. And that line is always open. That line of communication is open. Like, they can come to the iftar party, they come to your halaq on your heart, they come to like your, they come to your gatherings, they come to places where haram isn't happening. But you don't need to go to the club with them. You know what I'm saying? You don't need to go to like do funny business with women with them, whatever. You know what I mean? Like, and that means you have to have the wherewithal and the fatana to draw the line with that. And if they are people that are forcing you, they're not good friends. It's okay to say they're not good friends. Does that answer your question? Allah bless you, inshallah. Give it tawfiq. All right, we got to wrap up. Well, one more question. We're up. Yeah.
Just kind of following.
What was your name?
Ahmed. So a long time ago, someone once told me that if you're in a gathering of like 5 people, 4 people are doing something, you're bound to be the 5th person to do it eventually.
Yeah.
And that was kind of like a wake up call with my group of friends at that time. And they were taking part in something that I was comfortable with. And I set a boundary and said, hey, I value you guys' friendship. We've been friends for a long time, but don't do this around me. I'm not going to. He said, cool, but it never lasted. Like, it was still partake in it. And I had to make a judgment call for myself and kind of step away.
Yeah.
So, in the sense of, preserving the friendship, was that something that I did right?
Absolutely. How old are you? 24. The worst thing you can have is be turn 30 and look at your 20s and I wasted my time. Like, what was I doing in my 20s? What was I doing? That's the biggest regret you'll have. You turn 40, what the heck was I doing at 30? Why was I hanging out with these people, right? Don't live a life. Like, ask yourself, am I regretting this? Am I going to look back and regret? Right? We all do it. But do I look back and regret this time? Or am I somebody who's like, I'm not going to waste my time? وَلَا تَصْرِفُ أَنفُسَكُمْ. Like, don't do israf. If you have to hang out with your friends all the time, like all the time, you're wasting your life. Friendship is tasliya, but it's time to work, right? And I'll end with this. One of my friends told me a teacher had told him, he visited a sheikh, and he asked him, how do you balance deen and dunya? You have your question? Remember this? How do I balance my deen and dunya? Or Instagram, balancing deen and dunya. He's like, why would you balance deen and dunya? Why would you balance something amazing with something that is filthy? Everything is deen, and you just fill dunya in when you need it, right? So there's a time for friendship, and there's a time to get to work. Okay? Am I answer your question? So you didn't do anything wrong. وَنَسَأَ اللَّهُ لَنَا وَالْتَمَالَ التَّوْفِيقِ وَالْحَمْدُ لِلَّهِ رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ. Inshallah, our next class will be on the 10th, inshallah, of July. Will be on the 10th of July, inshallah. There'll be more announcements on the Instagram page and more events. Inshallah ta'ala, and those of you that have a likening for more of these, let us know, and we have an intention to up the frequency, right? For those of us that are asking for us to, inshallah. So keep in touch, inshallah. We'll pray Salat al-Maghrib and make dua for us. And for anybody that's new here that you just met, exchange numbers. Anybody that is new here, if you're seeing new faces. And if anybody volunteers, please see Sister Asma, inshallah, who's our volunteer lead. And give her a round of applause too, mashallah ta'ala. Make dua for her. And where's her husband at? Where's her man at? Where's your boo? Ali Hashmi, inshallah ta'ala. Here, alhamdulillah. And make dua for them, inshallah ta'ala, and their family, and all of the volunteers, Mustafa, Yaqub, inshallah, and all the ones who've named that I haven't been familiar with, inshallah. And for our brother Sharif, inshallah, who does all of this stuff for you. So we ask Allah for kamal al-tawfiq, walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.
Testing.
I know. It's past ran so long. Hey, you know how to do that then?
Well, I do it the Shia way. I don't know if everyone wants to hear that.
What's the Shia?
We just say Hayya ala khair amal, which is like what the Prophet originally ordered people to say, but people removed
He's trying to
it.
say is he does it the right way.
It is actually the right way. Like it was bid'ah, like they removed it.
Do you know how to do the adhan? Can you do the adhan?
If I wasn't too shy. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله